What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. And I have some breaking news to announce, and that is that former Abercrombie CEO Mike Jeffries, along with two other men, have been charged with trafficking male models. Michael Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, was arrested and is being charged with two others in the operation of a secretive international trafficking scheme that lasted for years, cost millions of dollars, and involved dozens of victims, prosecutors said Tuesday. Jeffries, who served as CEO of the clothing line from 1992 to 2014 and has a net worth of almost $400 million. And Matthew Smith of West Palm Beach and James Jacobson of Wisconsin were charged with trafficking and engaging in interstate trickery. Breon Peace, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, said at a press conference. Matter of fact, let's see if I can play the audio from this press conference. See if I can find it for you. Oh, here we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Breon Peace, United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. Thank you all for joining us today. With me today are James Dennehy, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's New York Field Office. We have Deputy Chief Carlos Ortiz, Commanding Officer of the NYPD Special Victims Unit. And we have my office's outstanding prosecution team, Aaron Reed, Megan Farrell, and Philip Pilmar. We're here today to announce the arrest and charging of three defendants. Former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, Michael Jeffries, Matthew Smith, and James Jacobson, on charges of sex trafficking and engaging in interstate prostitution. Powerful individuals for too long have trafficked and abused for their own sexual pleasure young people with few resources in a dream of securing a successful career in fashion or entertainment. To anyone who thinks they can exploit and coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system, this case should serve as a warning. Prepare to trade that couch for a bed in federal prison. The message from today's prosecution is clear. Sexually exploiting vulnerable human beings is a crime, and doing so by dangling dreams of a future in fashion or modeling or any other business is no different. My office and our law enforcement partners will always prioritize standing up for victims, no matter their gender and no matter how powerful the wrongdoers think they are. We will hold them to account. As we allege in the indictment, between 1992 and 2014, Michael Jeffries was the chief executive officer of Abercrombie & Fitch. Abercrombie was a widely known clothing retailer with stores around the world. Aspiring fashion models knew that a place on one of Abercrombie's iconic ads could be the ticket to success in the modeling industry. But while Jeffries was the CEO of one of the most recognizable clothing retailers in the world, he was using his power, his wealth, and his influence to traffic men for his own sexual pleasure and that of his romantic partner, Matthew Smith. The charging documents describe in graphic and disturbing detail the violent and exploitive acts these defendants perpetrated, for which they will now face justice in a court here in the Eastern District of New York. So here's what's alleged in the indictment. Jeffries and Smith employed James Jacobson to act as a recruiter to find men. Jacobson engaged in, quote, tryouts with men across the world where he would typically pay them to engage in sex acts with him. Following the tryouts with Jacobson, Smith would often then personally approve whether the men who were selected would meet Jeffries and Smith. The defendants would fly the selected men to Jeffries and Smith's homes in the Hamptons in New York City or to hotels around the world in such places as England, France, Italy, Morocco, and St. Bart's for the purpose of attending events to engage in commercial sex. But beyond simply hiring men for sex, Jeffries, Smith, and Jacobson used force, fraud, and coercion to traffic those men for their own sexual gratification. For example, as alleged, the defendants employed a referral system and an interview process that did not inform the men of the details of the sex events before they attended, including the full extent and nature of the sexual activity that would be required of the men at these events. They caused the men to believe that attending these sex events could yield modeling opportunities with Abercrombie or otherwise benefit their careers. Smith and Jeffries employed a secret staff to operate these sex events. The staff ensured that the men signed non-disclosure agreements and handed over their personal items, such as their phones, before the start of the events to maintain the secrecy of these events. The defendants caused the men to believe that not complying with requests for certain acts, sex acts during the events, could harm their careers. The defendants pressured the men to consume alcohol, Viagra, and muscle relaxants known as poppers during the sex events. And they required the presence of staff during the sexual activity and ensured that the men did not leave the sex events until Jeffries and Smith decided that the sessions were over. Also, as alleged, on more than one occasion, Jeffries and Smith either directed others to inject or personally injected men with an erection-inducing substance for the purpose of causing the men to engage in sex acts the men were incapable of engaging in or unwilling to engage in. Additionally, the indictment alleges on more than one occasion when men did not or could not consent, Jeffries and Smith violated the bodily integrity of these men by subjecting them or continuing to subject them to invasive sexual and violent contact by body parts and other objects. As alleged in the indictment, Jeffries, Smith, and Jacobson didn't just carry this activity on for a couple of occasions. Their sex trafficking and prostitution enterprise lasted at least from the end of 2008 until early 2015. During that period, the defendants hired dozens of men and transported them to New York and around the globe. They spent millions of dollars on a massive infrastructure to support this operation and maintain its secrecy. This included hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash for commercial sex, prolific amounts of money for staff to run the sex events, money for domestic travel, international travel, hotel rooms, services from a security company, and Jacobson's salary, among other things. Now, this investigation remains ongoing. Although there are 15 John Does identified as victims in this indictment, This interstate prostitution venture encompassed dozens and dozens of men. And I encourage anyone with information about this case, including anyone who was a victim of the defendant's alleged crimes, to contact the FBI. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Now, I want to thank the victims who have already come forward for sharing their stories. Prosecutions like this are really impossible without the bravery of victims who are willing to report what happened to them to law enforcement. This office, the Department of Justice, and its law enforcement partners will continue to work tirelessly to protect victims from powerful individuals who use their wealth and their influence to exploit and harm others for sexual gratification. In addition to my team, I'd like to give special thanks to FBI Special Agent Amanda Young and NYPD Detectives Paul Byrne and Antonio Pagan, who have worked hard on this investigation in the pursuit of justice.
So, turn it off. So, first of all, these allegations are absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. Okay? While everybody deserves to have their day in court, the fact that there are already 14 John Does, and he alluded to perhaps as many as, from what I've read, 100 people who are going to eventually come out and I guess either testify against him or perhaps file lawsuits, maybe civil lawsuits against him. This is a disturbing pattern that we're seeing. Okay, we're seeing all of these people, all of these rich, powerful moguls and elites taking their power and inflicting pain and suffering and degradation and humiliation on the powerless. The old phrase goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it happens almost every time. I've always maintained that I thought this was bigger than Diddy. This will not take away from what Diddy has been accused of at all. But some of the things that he's talking about in this press conference, confirming that this man apparently had freak-offs. You know, the term that's popularized with Diddy, the FBI is confirming that. This guy had freak-offs with male models. And by the way, I think that the victims of these types of crimes, the male victims, should also be noted. You know what I mean? Men also can fall victim to these types of things and be coerced or even frightened into silence, fearing that if they come out, that something, you know, could happen to them or someone they love, you know. But it's just eerie to me that the things that we hear about when it comes to Diddy is similar to what we're hearing with this guy. And this is why I said, like, you know, I always thought that this was bigger than Diddy, and this is a pattern. This is something that's going on, and this is something that's going on behind closed doors. Whether you're talking about in Hollywood or just in general with moguls. You know, these people for a long time have been able to commit their horrid crimes in silence, or in the shadows, I should say, in silence, because the mainstream media doesn't do their job. You know what I'm saying? They only report really on certain people, while the rich and powerful get to do whatever the hell they want to do for the most part. This is encouraging. And I'm saying encouraging because one of the things that was always bothering me was, it just seemed like a lot of the mainstream media only wants to target certain people. And I know there were other people out there doing it on a grander scale than Diddy. And there's still people in the shadows that haven't been named yet. But this is the year where these people are going to be called out, man. And, look, Cat Williams was right about one thing. 2024 was a year where all will be revealed. So, also like Diddy, it was a lawsuit that piqued the FBI's interest in this guy's case. It was a lawsuit that was, because it's going to be people, I think it's people out there already saying, oh, Diddy must be snitching. No, the FBI was looking into this before Diddy, that situation. They've been looking into this situation since, I think, early 2023, when there was a class action lawsuit filed by 100 alleged victims of this guy, male model victims. The FBI looked into this, saw it was legit, and now he's been arrested and charged with trafficking. And some of the stuff is disgusting. Right on par with Diddy. Right on par with Diddy. And this guy, you know what I'm saying? He belongs behind prison. He belongs behind bars in prison, excuse me. Look, there's so many people. When you look at, well, look, this is another thing too. Not to be funny, but there's some telltale signs when you look back at it that this guy was, a creep. Look who Abercrombie and Fitch were marketing their clothing to. Young boys, young men. There were some allegations that Abercrombie and Fitch, some of their campaigns were a little bit racist, but, that's a whole other discussion for another day. But this guy apparently is a creep. And I hope that justice is given to those who've been victims of this guy and the others whose reign of terror have come to an end. And hopefully other people's reigns of terror will come to an end. Now, the FBI has a 99+% conviction rate. So they got the evidence that this guy has been doing what he's doing. And they've come out, and this ain't no tabloid gossip. He confirmed what he was doing. Using people like cattle. Using people as living, living copies of, corn movies that he and others probably engaged in, indulged themselves in, I should say. That's just disgusting. All for the promise of advancement. Then you wonder why so many people, so many models get hooked on drugs. Look at, not the name somebody, but this is not a male model, but look what happened to Cubana Lust. Cubana Lust was a video vixen 10, 15 years ago. She was the hottest thing going. Last I seen, she was hooked bad on whatever drugs that she been hooked on. And, it's a downward spiral for her. I hope she gets help. But it's been a downward spiral for her for quite some time, man. But there's a lot of people like that, are victims of this insidious and sick casting couch system. Anyway, tell me what you guys think.